What's up, everybody? This is Cheeky CP with 3 Beats Later, and this is the very first episode of Very Dope Producers. My first guest is none other than the Kit Complete.
I'm back.
All right. All right. Well, cheers, man.
Cheers.
What are you drinking on? What is that?
It's a Carlton Draft. It's just like a cheap Australian beer.
Nothing wrong with that. I just wanted to kind of just open it up a little bit and kind of go through a quick bio. So if you could kind of just let me know a little bit about yourself and let the world know a little bit about yourself. The first thing I'm interested in is really how long have you been producing music and making beats?
So I'd say roughly about 15 years. So I got into beat making fairly early. In high school, I started making beats.
Did you have any kind of software that you're using at the time?
I had Reason.
Yes.
I was going back and trying to figure out which version I had. And I think I had like 2 or 2.5.
I'm right with you, man. I went to college and they were giving away all this software and I had a version of Reason.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I started as well. And I had that and I had Fruity Loops as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had never heard of Fruity Loops until years and years later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everybody's on it now. Now my Daw of Choice is Logic. That's really what I've been mainly producing in. But can you tell me, like, how did that happen exactly? Like, you're in high school, and were you playing instruments too? Do you have like any kind of like formal musical training or anything like that?
Yeah, so I always wanted to be a musician, like since I can remember. I started, learning piano when I was in primary school, and I learned bass when I was in high school. But I wasn't very good at any of it. Like practicing is not one of my strong points. So yeah, it was my older brother he got like the Roland Dr. Rhythm and Dr. Sample.
Oh my God.
And he got Reason. So that's where I first like started getting into producing rather than playing an instrument.
Yeah, I remember that it had the interface, so in a way kind of like really cool at the time where I remember you could like actually plug in like the aux.
Yeah, you could like flip the rack and yeah.
That was cool at the time, but I think they were overthinking it. Like I don't know how much development time they put into just that user experience, but I remember that was hilarious. So was it always hip hop or were you into like different types of music? Jazz? I hear a lot of jazz influence, I'll say, in some of your beats. Musically, what was the influences when you were kind of just starting out?
Yeah, I guess so when I first started making beats, it was a lot of hip hop, but also like guys like Aphex Twin and Ortekra, Square Pusher,
Square
like
Pusher.
some of the like UK stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I wasn't anywhere near as good as making that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then it was like my brother's friend of a friend kind of thing. I heard a song that he produced with a rapper. It had like these violins in it, and it blew my mind because I thought, like, how did he get these violins sounding so good? It took me for ages. Like it probably was the better part of a year before I realized it was a sample, that he just found a sample on a record and looped it.
Yeah.
And that sort of changed everything for me.
Yeah. That's amazing. For me, I was really into like rock music and a lot of funk music growing up. And hip hop was just all around. It was just kind of a part of everyday life, I believe. And I think it wasn't until like high school that I realized like, oh wait, you can create this with, you know, just like one of these beat machines. So I think in high school is really for me where, you know, I was able to connect the dots and say like, maybe I could do this. And I started kind of dabbling a little bit later. So I want to talk about the quarantine tape. I wanted to know a little bit about the inspiration behind this tape. You know, how long it took you to create that. But if you could kind of just give an intro to what the tape is, what the idea was behind it, if this is part of just kind of like a quarantine related goal to put something out.
Yeah, so the idea behind it was so I moved from Canada back to Australia. And in doing so, coming to Australia, there's a mandatory, like enforced 2 week quarantine where they put you in a hotel room and you can't leave the hotel room for 2 weeks. And, you know, there's some, you know, some people have some nightmare stories of being stuck in a room for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I knew that if I didn't have something to keep me busy, that you know, I'd probably go crazy in there.
Right.
So yeah, the idea was that when I got there, you know, I'd start on day one. I had 2 weeks to make the whole beat tape and release it.
Holy shit, man. Wow, that's amazing. I didn't, you know, I guess I wasn't paying enough attention, but I didn't realize that you did that whole tape in 2 weeks. So bravo, man.
Yeah, well, when
That's
you've got nothing else to do,
how long, so
you
how long
know.
do you think you were spending on the process throughout the day? If, you know, let's pretend you're awake for 12 hours, was it just 100% of the time or?
No, no. You know, it wasn't like a full-time job, you know, it wasn't like
Mm,
8 hours a day. Um, but I spent ages just looking for samples. Um, I think that probably took up most of the time. Like I probably made about like maybe 30 or 40 beats, but I only used, I think, 7 or 8 of them.
yeah,
Um, just because, yeah, it was just like a process of, you know, make, fail, repeat kind of thing.
right. That's amazing. So you have, in theory, you have enough content for the quarantine tape number 2, the
Yeah,
the
yeah.
remixes.
I don't know if any of that stuff will see light of day, but
Yeah. So that's amazing, and that actually makes some of these other questions I have a little bit more important, because I thought that a lot of the mixing in the tape was great. So can you tell me a little bit about, okay, you're in a hotel for 2 weeks, you're going to make a tape. So you came in knowing that the quarantine was going to happen and you
yeah.
knew I got to do something for these 2 weeks.
Hmm.
Okay. In terms of mixing and mastering everything, is that all done just like on a laptop as well? Or do you use any kind of like specific software to do all that? Or did you kick it to someone else to help you with that process?
No, it was all just done on the laptop, just inside Ableton. Yeah, just on these headphones. Um,
That's amazing.
yeah, I have you know, I I heard the term schmastering a while back, and I sort of, that's kind of my approach to the whole thing. Like you you can't really get like a perfect mix just on a pair of headphones, and you can't really do like good mastering, you know, just on a pair of headphones.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I just have sort of some tricks to make things sound good enough.
Okay. Yeah, I thought, you know, one of the tracks that we'll talk about too is Raining, which I
Mm,
thought was especially tasty to the ears. um, and that's something, so that's amazing, just using headphones just to get that kind of that level of crispness. So we'll get to that in a second though. So really quick, so tell me about the experience in the hotel. How is that? Do they have was there room service ordered? Um, are they really
yeah,
strict? Could you go outside and smoke a cigarette? Like what's the deal?
no, they are really strict. When I first got there, they said they had a room with a balcony available, but they were going to charge you $400 a night for that room. Yeah, if they catch you like in the hallway, they can fine you. Technically, they can like send you to jail, but I don't think anyone's actually been
Holy shit.
prosecuted yet. It's really, really strict. And yeah, you're in a room, like they tell you that you walk through the door and they're like, you can't leave this room for 2 weeks.
Holy
We will
shit.
give you 3 meals a day, and that's, a nurse will call you up every day and, check if you have any symptoms, check if you want to like speak to a counselor. But that's basically all the interaction you get.
Wow. So how were the meals?
Well, they put me up in, it's like a 5-star hotel, so everything was actually pretty good.
Oh my God. That's awesome. What about, were you just kind of like calling other rooms randomly? All the other quarantiners?
No, no, I didn't actually try.
Sharing your mix with them? Hey, tell me, should
That
the,
would have been a good idea,
yeah.
actually.
I'm going to bounce this down and send it to your phone. Um, that's awesome. That's hilarious. Okay. So let's dig into some of these tracks. So what I want to do is talk about one of the tracks that I love, which is Nature. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm going to show you why I love this. I'm actually going to share my screen with you. Okay. What you're about to hear is the most crude transcription of your own beat here.
Oh, cool.
Here we go. What I love, is the push and pull in a melody line where it will snap to a grid. Sometimes it's going to come off of the grid. And with this melody line specifically, you can hear it slow down. So the beats are kind of lagging at one point. And at the end of that phrase, it hits right back onto the rhythm. So you hear like, dit, dit, do, do, dit, dit, and then all of a sudden it's slowing down, da, 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 and then we're back on time. And you can actually see that, when I do this and I'm producing and I want to have like that human feel, like I didn't, just quantize everything. What I'll do is I'll go in and drag notes, just like a hair to the right, a hair to the left. And this melody line itself feels like it's like close to the grid, and then it comes off of the grid in midway through, and at the very end it comes close to the grid again. So it waves almost. So I guess one of my questions about this phrase is this just due to playing it out on the keys, or is there thought put into when you're kind of like doing things that aren't quantized? And also, if you could explain if you're just like putting like an LFO on like the tempo or anything like that to make it kind of wavy. How do you view this when you're producing?
So that melody is actually dictated by the sample.
Nice. Okay.
If I'm not sure if you can go and play the intro of the beat, you'll hear the melody come in straight away, and then what I've done is I had this sample that I really wanted to use, but I couldn't quite finesse it the way I wanted to. I ended up reversing the sample, and I'm not sure if, like, you probably know that, like, when you reverse stuff, you can get some really weird rhythms.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you play it from the intro, you'll hear just the sample, and then you'll hear I put a synth over the top of that to accentuate that melody.
Okay. I do hear in the background, as I was transcribing it, it felt like that there was the almost like whispery sounding like synth line, and then in the back there was like xylophone-y type of like vibe sounding things
Yeah,
that were
yeah.
like just behind that too. So it's almost like your ear hears something that's a little bit more on the grid, and then there's all this like, you know, things happening right behind it. And I can play that. And if you give me 2 seconds, I need to share my screen in a different way. So let me just do that really quick. So we could play the intro of that really quick and capture that. And I'll do that right here. So here you go. So I will go to the beginning of that. So here we go. Let me know if you could hear this though.
Yeah. So that's just a sample on its own. And then I fade in the synth line on top of it. There's the synth coming in.
So almost that like pan fluty, like there's like some like air there on that synth. Okay, that's awesome. So then all those chords in reverse that you hear, that's also part of the same sample as well.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Okay, and then the other thing is bass lines. I think a lot of the stuff that you're doing on bass, how do you approach bass lines just in general on this tape or in general? Are you playing those mainly on keys? Do you have anybody that you work with that plays bass, or are you just grabbing samples here and there?
It's generally like synth or sampled instruments, generally like plugins that I use for bass lines. I always had trouble writing bass lines. I never thought that they were interesting enough. And one thing that I was doing, you know, sort of recently was I would fall into the trap of just having a bass that plays throughout, like there's no silence. So that's something that I try to include nowadays, is making sure that like bass notes have an ending rather than just like a sub bass that just continues throughout a whole loop or a whole song.
Yeah,
Um,
that's actually what I was going to point out. So the same thing, you know, kind of in the same vein of what we just talked about with the melody line of that synth, and right on par with what you just mentioned yourself, is the note length of all of your bass lines in this track here, or specifically with the nature track, is really intriguing to my ear. And I'm just going to play just the bass. This is the transcription. So it's a little off. And so it has this like really like heavy wobbling feel to it almost. And I just think it's dope. I think it's, I don't know if you're like, you know, consciously making decisions on some of this stuff, but to see, you know, you kind of inflect a little bit of this like extra funk when you're chopping the note right before the beat hits, which is perfect. And then the beat comes, or the note comes in a little bit earlier, anticipating the next beat. And then that note stays, you know, past the beat a little bit here. So when I'm kind of highlighting right there. So it's, I feel like it's like, to my ear, I'm like hearing this like extra juicy, wobbly, weird uniqueness with what you're doing on the bass line. So I'm just going to play the track again just to hone in on the bass line. Here you go. So like coming in early and staying late on the beat is kind of what I hear in some of the bass.
yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, well, the bass is a weird instrument. Like a lot of bass players, they consider it more of a drum than a melodic instrument. Um, and yeah, they have to sort of fill these pockets that aren't already being filled up by other instruments. It can get a little weird sometimes.
I've been, one of the things I've been kind of experimenting with is I'm like a melody chords person first. Is I'll play around with like chords and melody before I even touch any drums at all. So what I've been doing is kind of like building chords, hearing where the tempo is, laying down a rough idea with just a snare to keep me like knowing where, the beat is. And then I pick up the bass and I kind of just improvise a couple ideas on the bass, just because it is a little bit closer to rhythm, right? It's like you're not playing with the drums yet, you're playing with something that's like the brother of the rhythm in the track.
Yeah.
In my opinion, on the beat tape, one of the dopest tracks is Raining, right? That's the name of the track, Raining.
Mm-hmm.
So you have, I'm just gonna start naming things that I think are dope about it. So the bass there, you have a little bit of sub on there. Here, 1 second. I hear some like synth sub back there too, just kind of laying at the bottom of the track.
Yeah. So the bass you hear from the start, that's the sample. And then I just layered in that like sub bass underneath it.
I'm gonna play it again. The bubbles. What's up with the bubbles?
It's all just the sample.
Oh
Hey,
my
like
God.
that's why a lot of the time spent making this was just looking for
Just
samples.
finding the
like,
right ones. Yeah.
Like one of the inspirations behind this beat tape was Madlib.
Okay.
And like the fact that he doesn't really chop up stuff that much. His main skill is just finding good
Finding the
loops.
loop. Yeah. I hear that, man. I mean, every week, what we do on our stream is just, look at different, songs specifically, or different artists. And very often, like, I'll find like the perfect 8 bars. And I kind of have this internal battle with myself where I'll just play the loop and like put a little bit of drums on it. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, should I do more, or is it perfect right now?
Yeah, no, I've been the same for a long time. Yeah, it just some like people think that sampling is cheating, and I don't feel that way. But yeah, when you find just a loop and you don't have to do anything to it, then it does start to feel a little bit like cheating.
But I mean,
But yeah, I wanted to just, I wanted to just like put that to the side and just make something that sounded good rather than something that like was like technical to make.
right. Or overproduced, or, you very,
Yeah.
very often I find myself like just like adding and adding and adding. And at the end of the day, you sit back and you're like, how can I even start to, arrange what I just put together? So I really love the simplicity in that. Then if it's, you definitely found the right loop here, man. And there's an art to that, man. That's
Yeah.
like, there's a skill, and you have the ear, because that is a ridiculous sample. What about did you have any just general thoughts about like making a tape, kind of like having some consistency in any way in terms of the different like the different vocal samples that are used? And by that, I mean like the different like cuts of like movie or show snippets, or even in
Yeah.
consistency of like the tempo. I feel like some tracks kind of blend really well together because they're in the same BPM range. Did you put any thought to that when putting this together?
So the process of making this was quite different to what I normally do for a tape. Um, in the past, what I've done is like I'll just make beats for like a year or something, and then when I feel like putting something together, I will just start going through everything that I've done in the past year and pulling things aside that I think are like good enough quality, like just something that I would like to put out, and then B, picking things that would sort of fit good together. So I've done a tape in the past that was all like really, more bass heavy, sort of trap inspired stuff, and I knew that like with this tape and with my last tape that it was going to be just more focused on samples and more like a boom bap stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so going into this, I only had the 2 weeks to make it. So the process was I started searching for samples like in bulk. I spent a whole day just looking for samples, and then I'd spent the next day going through and trying to turn them into beats. So I did go into it knowing sort of like having an idea of what I wanted the general like sound to be.
Yeah. And can you share anything about searching and digging for samples? Is it completely random? Do you have some hidden spots that you like to to try to find some stuff? Are
Um,
there's so much out there. It's kind of like, where do you start, when sample searching?
I'm pretty sure everything, all like the musical samples, they're all from YouTube. Uh,
Wow.
like because I didn't have access to actually look through vinyl or anything,
Right.
and I knew I needed to do things in a hurry.
Right.
So YouTube is just a really great resource for that. Yeah, I have a few channels that I follow that just upload records, just
Oh, nice. Okay.
um, places like Final Frontier. That's
Okay.
always a good place to start if you just need something quickly.
Yeah.
Uh, and then they also have Vinyl Frontier East, which is where I end up um, more often than their main channel. I
Yeah.
just feel like there's sort of less people looking for those like Asian and like Eastern European records.
Yeah.
So it's kind of easier to be a bit more original or find something that hasn't been sampled a million
Yeah.
times.
There's less people in the aisle, digging through the specific crate
Yeah,
you're digging
yeah.
through. Yeah, that makes sense.
Uh-huh.
That's awesome. All right, you heard it here. A secret. The secret sauce was revealed, but we don't have to keep that in.
Well, that's that's not really the secret sauce. That's just a place to start. Like one tip that I would say is that like if you find something on Vinyl Frontier that you like, just start looking for that artist,
Yeah,
because a lot of the time, because Vinyl Frontier will upload like a song, but a lot of the time you'll find albums of their stuff on YouTube.
yeah. That's awesome. Those are great tips. Thank you for the tips. What do you? Is there any thought in terms of length of a track? I feel like I think the tape is about 8 tracks, and they really get you like as soon as you start feeling like what's happening there, then boom, boom, you're on to the next one. Do you think of that in terms of an actual time end goal? Like, all right, we got to keep this 2 minutes or under 2 minutes. What is your thought behind that?
Well, I don't go into it with like an actual time, um,
Mhm.
but I am definitely part of the MTV generation, and I get bored really quickly.
Yeah.
So for me, I would prefer to listen to a short beat twice than to get bored of it listening to it once.
Okay.
So unless there's enough to keep like the interest going, like if you have some big changes or things like that, like I do make beats that are you know 3 and 4 minutes, but only like on sort of special occasions, like on just sort of these regular verse chorus kind of beats.
Yeah.
I try to keep them short.
So I don't know how you like what the some of the end direction is with your finalized compositions. Do you go out and kind of like shop them to lyricists, or do you look to like collaborate with specific artists? Do you do any of that, or do you just kind of do it for the beat alone and go in that lane?
So when I started making beats, I was always working with MCs. Once I sort of stopped being in crews, and I wanted to do stuff on my own, uh, then yeah, I focus mainly just on beats.
Do you get approached by MCs nowadays, and they kind of reach out to you in any way? Or nowadays, I mean, with so much available on the internet, it seems like any producer is accessible, you know what I mean? um
Yeah, yeah.
or do you even engage
Not.
in, I think like nowadays so many producers go and you know try their hand at just selling beats online and stuff like that, doing the whole leasing thing. Do you venture down that
Mm,
lane as well, or?
no. So I don't get approached as often as as other beat makers might.
Mhm.
And I generally turn people away. I don't really sell beats because mainly because of the whole sampling thing.
Right.
Getting samples cleared is just too difficult these days. I have thought about using tracklib or something to
Right.
get rights to samples, but
Right.
I just haven't really implemented that.
Right.
I am working on a project at the moment with MCs. Um, I have no idea how long this is going to take because
Yeah.
um, I mean you probably know about working with rappers, and they'll say something's going to be done, and it will take a while, but um,
See, you just got to get them in a hotel
yeah.
room for 2 weeks straight and make sure they don't leave, and then it'll get done.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If I can see them in person, it's easier. But doing stuff over the internet is just
it's it's
yeah,
tough.
yeah,
Yeah. The one thing that I kind of talk about a lot on our stream is replay and resampling. Like on our, we're sampling a lot each week, and sometimes I'll take a sample and I'll deconstruct it and just replay it on the synth. Like I'll take something that's at like a high BPM, like 90 BPM, slow it way down to like 60 BPM, take a snippet of it that's maybe just like two chords or something, and then I'll, after we present the beat on the stream, then I'll go back and replay. So I'll just play those chords out and kind of construct what the sample did. So you're kind of
yeah, yeah.
removing yourself from actually taking a sound recording and placing it onto a track. You're
Uh-huh.
now kind of like reinterpreting
It's
something
more
in.
like inspired by, yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Do you dabble in that, or have you messed around with that at all?
I have messed around with it, but I'm not very good at it. Uh, One of the things that always draws me back to using samples is like texture.
Oh yeah.
Um, and I found in the past that when I was trying to like replay things that they just didn't sound full. They just didn't have the same texture as the original recordings.
Yeah.
Part of that was just not having good plugins. So
Hmm.
I have a whole bunch more plugins nowadays. I have been, messing around a bit more with, yeah, like reinterpreting things rather than direct sample.
Hmm.
I did release a tape a while back called Conversion Errors, and it was the idea behind that was Ableton had just done the audio to MIDI conversion. For some things it does really well, but for other things it sort of messes things up a bunch.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was sort of all based on taking beats that I had made and then converting them to MIDI and you know seeing how different or similar they sounded to the original beat.
Is that on YouTube as well?
It's on Bandcamp, but it's not on YouTube.
Okay. I'm gonna have to listen to that. That's awesome. What what is your thought on, I heard some, really cool usage of like a tambourine instead of a hi-hat. Um, just in general, I purchased a couple tambourines just to record that on a lot of my beats because you could really inject a lot of swing into tracks, which is what I use the tambo for. But then usually I'm just kind of like I don't know what you call it, like a two-step hi-hat guy, in the
Yeah,
vein
yeah,
of like
yeah.
some boom bap. What is your, and the funny thing is, one of the hosts on our stream, he very often, he doesn't use any hi-hat at all.
Hmm.
Where do you stand on hi-hats? I want to open a hi-hat debate.
I think it's just, whatever fits. It's just the right tool for the job, I think. Um, but yeah, no, I sort of get what you mean. Like when I first started listening to Apollo Brown, he doesn't use hi-hats very often. He also uses tambourine a lot, and he does really sparse, like just like on the 1 and 3 kind of thing, or the 1, 2, 3, 4. Also, I'll throw into the mix. When I first got into, I'm not sure if you know 20 Sil, the French.
Oh,
It's it's 20 SYL.
okay.
He's a DJ and beat maker, and I saw him making a beat, and yeah, he does a lot of cool stuff because he sort of starts off with samples and then adds all of these instrumentation, and he pulled out a triangle. And when I saw that, I was like, man, that's actually really cool.
Oh shit, man. You know,
So
hey, I'm gonna have to.
you're gonna have to throw that into the mix now. The hi-hats, tambourines, or triangles.
That's awesome. What about what are your thoughts on distribution nowadays? I see a lot of beat makers now actually producing cassette tapes and selling them online for something like the quarantine
Hmm.
tape, which is just available for everybody, essentially free on YouTube. How do you view distribution nowadays for, this is more or less kind of like a ideology type of conversation around distribution.
Hmm.
Would you do anything to produce like a physical copy for this tape, or is that in the works, or what are your thoughts there?
I haven't made anything physical in years. Like my first beat tape, I did a physical copy, but um, yeah, I think I still have like a box of CDs somewhere. Um, so personally, I don't think there's much point in physical copies unless you are doing something like an actual cassette or an actual piece of vinyl.
Right.
um, but it's kind of just supply and demand stuff. Like if people want it, then there is a point in making it. But
Yeah.
for me, I found in general people they don't really want physical media anymore.
What about vinyl? Do you think that's the case with vinyl?
Yeah, well, I've got a mate who he also does like instrumental hip hop stuff, and he releases quite a bit on vinyl. Um, yeah, I think it's more like a collector's item. Like,
Hmm.
I don't think people buy the vinyl so much. It's not entirely because they want to listen to it. It's partly because they want to collect vinyl.
Right.
Um, I think, and it's not that they don't listen to it, but I just assume that they'll they will also listen to his releases digitally. Like,
Right.
um,
They.
I'm pretty sure that's what he does as well. If you buy the vinyl, you get
Yeah.
the digital download as well.
I think I see a lot of, not a lot, but I see some artists. I'll see
Yeah, yeah.
people, who have their like Patreon account, and if you are a Patreon supporter, then you get, you know, a cut of the vinyl when it comes out. So that keeps someone like regularly investing in that artist. I think that that's really smart. I think that, you know, I'm in no way am I probably going to be doing any of that stuff, but I just think that that's cool. One of these days, I think I would, if once I have a, you know, a final product with what we're doing now, then maybe vinyl is the way to go. But cool. That's just want to get your insight there. Okay. What is your DAW of choice?
Currently is Ableton.
Okay. Software or hardware?
Software.
All right.
I mean, do you want me to elaborate, or?
You can if you want. It's completely open to your interpretation.
I can't remember who it was. I heard someone saying the other day, because you know, I've just got the Machine Plus and I love it, but it's essentially a small computer. You
Right.
know, it's just software running in a different style box.
Right.
So yeah, it's the software that I like the most.
All right. 808s or kicks?
Kicks. You can always have a kick and a sub bass.
Here's the next one. You ready? Quantization?
I'm pro quantization. I think too many people just feel like I, I don't know what they feel it's like, but I think too many people just don't quantize for the sake of being able to say that they don't quantize. Uh, I saw I saw Marco Polo talking about it, and he's like, you know, not using quantize is cool and all, but ask your DJ friend how much they like your unquantized beats, because trying to mix that stuff is just annoying. And yeah, like, you know, if you're a really skilled player, then you know you don't need quantization because you can play in time.
Exactly.
I think it becomes a bit of a crutch just to be able to say that you don't use quantize rather than
Yeah,
you know just making music that's good regardless of what tools you use.
Nice. Here's another one. You ready? Loop
Mm-hmm.
kits? Loop kits?
Yeah, I mean, I've got nothing against them personally, but it uh, that for me it goes back to you know, looping records rather than chopping records, or you know, it does start to feel a bit like cheating. Um, but you know, on the other hand, if you're one of these guys who you know you need to get into a studio and make a beat on the spot for a rapper who's breathing down your neck, then I know that they're sort of invaluable to those kinds of producers.
Yeah, absolutely. Good answer there. All right. And then the last one is, you know, what are some trends that you see in beat making right now? Second part of this is, where do you think, you know, beat making as kind of like a culture or profession is headed, like in the next 10 years or so down the road?
I don't know. As far as trends, I don't know. I don't think I listen to enough
Yeah.
music. Like when you know, I spend a lot of time looking for samples rather than listening to a lot of beat makers.
Yeah.
Um, but have I had a theory when I was younger that beat making was going to become like the new folk music. You know, like back in the day, anyone could grab an acoustic guitar and be the next Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
Um, and nowadays, it's everyone has a laptop or an iPad. They have access to really cheap software that is actually good. Um, and yeah, so it's kind of like, you know, you'll go around to someone's house and instead of them playing something on the guitar, they'll play you one of their beats.
That is, so how long ago did you have that premonition?
I don't remember. But
I think that you're spot on there. That's pretty crazy. And, you know, that's hilarious. I'm going to tell that to my wife too, so she can think I'm extra cool. Because I'm the guy in the room who's going to pick up a guitar and put you to sleep as well. Now I could show you my beats and put you to sleep at the same time. That's hilarious. Okay, cool. So that's pretty much it. Take this time now if you want to kind of just, shout out anything you got going on, any future products, your YouTube channel, Instagram, social media. Just give us a rundown. Hype man your own self right now, and just, let us know what you're working on.
So yeah, it's YouTube. It's the Kit Complete. You can find me on most other social media things as the Kit Complete. The Quarantine tape just came out. It's free download off my Bandcamp. You can also listen to it on YouTube and SoundCloud. Yeah, I've got projects coming up, but I'm not sure when they'll be finished. So I don't know if there's much point trying to promo them now. Yeah, I think that's about it.
That's all good, man. Well, thanks a lot, man. It was great talking to you. Pretend like we're wrapping up here. Hey, goodbye.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, no problem.